It's the
Never.
question of the week.
I swear, didn't know the background. On a scale of 1 to 10, how strict are/were your parents, and how do you compare it to them?
So pretty strict. Like I said, my dad was my youth minister, but he was also in his younger years was a lot like me. And so a lot of that came across, but yeah, he was strict, but he was also a good dad. He wasn't like overbearing or anything. So I took a lot of good from him and, got rid of the things that I didn't like and, just tried to improve upon it. For the most part, it's just the temper. He's a redhead, got that vein that pops in his head. So that was the biggest thing I tried to cut out with being a dad.
You really buried a very deep lead there when you say you tried to remove the stuff you didn't like and keep the stuff. That's a 30-year process I've been going through. Well, not quite 30, I guess 20-year process I've been going through, trying to remove, not saying, oh, my parents were so strict and I hate everything, but picking out, okay, I actually did learn this. But before I go there, Joe, what about Papa NASCAR?
Oh, it depended on whether or not I was getting on his nerves. To be honest, he had a short fuse as well, and I say that he probably told me to do stuff multiple times and I ignored him, and then he would blow up. Yeah, no, he would just go straight to, well, not straight to, but once he got mad if I didn't like do my chores or whatever, you're grounded for a week. There was one summer where I was grounded the entire summer. And he would find stuff for me to do that I swear it had no point. We had this giant wood pile that we had a wood burning stove. So in the winter we would burn wood to keep our house warm instead of using heat and electricity and whatnot, or gas. I don't even know what ours was. Anyway, regardless, there was a summer where he had me move the entire pile, and
He last fortressed you?
I have no idea what
last
that means.
Castle. Oh, all right. I'll give you the reference in a minute.
but this pile, it spanned probably 30 feet on our 8-foot tall fence.
A pile of what?
Wood.
Okay.
Half of it I chopped myself anyway, and so
he castle
he made me move it to a different location, and then not a month later made me move it all back. And I was like, what was the point of that? And then he had me move just a portion of it closer to the house and put a tarp over it. And so I was like, what?
Build character.
But okay. In general, if I didn't tick him off, he was pretty laid back. And then my mom, as long as you didn't bring up anything that her sheltered upbringing triggered. So like I found a magic card and she was like, oh, that's of the devil. Or we can't have playing cards in the house, which we had playing cards anyway. She just didn't see them very often. And
she thought back, I'll just buy a new pack.
And so like different things like that, as long as it wasn't some kind of, in her mind, a taboo thing, she was relatively laid back as well. So as far as how strict they were, other than a couple of subjects, I'd probably put them at like a 3.
So how do you compare? Because honestly, my answer is, Joe, I think you're way stricter than your parents.
I think I am too, to be honest.
Why do you think that is? Why'd you swing that way?
I don't know. I just did. I like, sure. but like there's definitely
Kelsey, but whatever.
There's definitely things that my parents really excelled at that I try to do better at, and try to incorporate into my parenting. Making sure that I spend time with my kids, making sure that I'm creating memories with my kids, because nobody knows how long they're going to be on this earth, and your kids are your legacy. And so I want to build memories, and I want them to they will remember me being strict. It's going to happen. Every kid does remember the strict moments, but I also want there to be a counterbalance where they remember the good times and the fun times.
Yeah, and we've had that discussion off and on with how you treat Christmas or this and that and the other. My father started off as a youth pastor, became a pastor, and that's what he was the rest of his life. My mom was a pastor's wife, then a mom, in that order. My dad was not strict. He let my mom do everything, and my mom was super strict. I mean, super strict. And there's, I've told lots of stories off and on with all that stuff. On a scale of 1 to 10, it could be worse. I think anything could always be worse. I didn't get locked in a basement. I didn't get chained to anything, so it could be worse on strictness. I did get to have a TV in my room to play my Nintendo on. So I'd rate them like an 8 out of 10. And how I am is maybe I swung a little too far the other way, where there's certain things I never forced my kid into any kind of religion. I told them my views. I let them go to all the different churches they want to try or not try, blah, blah. But I worked through a lot of issues with my first set. So I have 4 kids, Dan, and I call them set 1 and set 2. Set 1 is 18 months apart, and then set 2 is also 18 months apart from each other, and then there's a gap. So it's just like that.
Pretty sizable gap.
Yeah, 5 years between the 2 middle kids. And I'm not even going to do the math on the oldest to the youngest. But so set 1 went 5 and 6.5 years essentially before the second set came around. So I worked through issues, and I actually had a talk with my son about, hey, you're the firstborn. I'm going to mess up with you the most. You will at some point in your life go, because I did this. I was the firstborn. So you'll at some point in your life go, that's not fair. You don't treat the siblings like you treated me. And I said, and you'll be right. But that's because I'm making my mistakes with you. Yeah, that's true, Random Kid. I was so worried I screwed up on one set. I had another set. I told him that. So I got backups.
Try again.
I'll leave you in the prison. I don't care. I got backups, man. You screw up. So, but yeah, I swing a little bit the other way, where now with my first set being 19 and almost 18, my oldest just turned 19, so his sister will turn 18 in October. I could have been stricter. There are things like, okay, while I do not agree with how my mom did things, and I do not have happy memories for a lot. I have happy memories in general.
Right, but you got bad ones too.
But yeah. And especially when it came to discipline and the reasoning and this and that, I realized like there is probably a reason I am who I am today, about doing things right and making sure I can learn the system so I don't break the system, but I can fly around it like Neo, and break the code on inside. And my kids don't get that. They're more normies. Oh, also, I think I say a lot, StonerGump, is that I'm a god among men. Hence rock out of podcasting. And I don't like it when my kids act like normal kids. They're supposed to be demigods, not normal kids. So that's different. So I want to add on to that question real quick. What expectation did you put on your kids that now you realize is unreasonable? While y'all think about it, I'll give you an example. Like with my older 2, I always expected them to be at this high level of standards because that's my standards. And inside the house, they do dumb things that kids do, right? They leave their shoes out or left or whatever, and they mess up. And I get overly mad at, or used to, I'd get overly mad at them because I had this high standard. Then we go out in public and I saw the standards of their peers were way lower. I'm like, oh yeah, they're a kid. So that's kind of like, that was an unreasonable expectation I put on my kids. What about you guys?
So I think the biggest is the youngest, because you forget how they're supposed to act, especially if you got an age gap. So I've got a 18-year-old, 17-year-old, 13-year-old, and then I've got my kiddo that just turned 8. And so being out in public, for instance, you got the rest of them acting like humans, and then you got the smallest, running off and doing God knows what.
The face. There's a real visceral memory right there. But
Joe, lots of them. So many of them. We went to the movies one time. Now, not one time, we go often, but anyway, the gentleman that takes your tickets at the movies, I don't know if he's got CP or what, I think it's cerebral palsy is what he has. And I think my youngest was 6 at the time. And I always teach my kids, always give out random compliments, try to be nice to strangers because there is no expectation of it. And so it means a lot more. And so we go up, we give the guy our tickets, he hands us our tickets back, and my kiddo looks at him and he says, I hope you get feeling better soon. And then he walks off. I don't know what the hell to say at that point. This guy's in a wheelchair just, holding our tickets. Hope you get better soon.
Wow. Joe,
the intention was good.
Right? Yeah, right. The heart was there. What's your unreasonable expectation?
Oh,
Roll that dice.
That was Kurt.
Wow.
That wasn't me. I was gonna let you talk,
jerk.
Joe. No, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, like, my 4-year-old definitely gets away with a lot more than the other two did, and I need to remind myself that we have been really bad about letting him get away with stuff that we really didn't let the others get away with. For instance, when he gets mad, when he was younger, when he would get mad at his brothers, he'd smack them, and we definitely should have gotten after him a lot more. But his older brothers were being jerks to him, so we kind of. So, but now that's his default go-to whenever he's mad at somebody. No, well, a family member. He doesn't go around smacking random people, which is always good. But
I would say sometimes random people deserve it.
But. I mean, you're not wrong. but yeah, that's kind of his go-to. If he's mad at his brothers, he just runs up, pulls his arm back, and bam, smacks him. And so, yeah, we are dealing with the consequences of our lax parenting with him when he was younger.
I just went no words. Yeah, Devo, I did not get any words out there. Just sounds. Partially, it's because we realize. Well, for me, I'll speak for myself. I realized what I thought was super important and going to be devastating wasn't. Right? They lived through this. They lived through that. Nothing. The world didn't end. All this other stuff. So you get more lax. But also, it's a spectrum, right? Of, like I said, I realized maybe if I'd been stricter, like my mom held really high standards on me and was very strict, and I would lose privileges and all that other stuff. Maybe if I was stricter, I would have had slightly more positive outcomes. Not that I'm having really negative outcomes with the kids, but I could see where I've had to do course correction. So for the record, my oldest son dropped out of high school 2 months before he was finished. 2 months. But I turned to my other 3 and like, that's never going to happen with you. And I apologize. I feel like I can never with him, but it's going to affect you now because all of you are still in school and you have no choice. So we course correct, right? We do that.